yeah, Tatum did what he did in the first half. Brown was a no-show. Brown was a dead no-show, and I know people think we pick on him on the show. Look, he was absolutely just non-existent. And it's one thing to have
It was a horrible game for him. I don't think
horrible
anyone
game,
should be trying to point to him and say, well, he didn't. No, this was a bad game for him.
bad
There's
game.
no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah, and it's not just the stuff. It's not just the shooting, and I think he started 3 of 12, from field goals and, couldn't get it going. But it's just that the stuff that drives you crazy, the dribbling into traffic without really any sense of awareness of what's around him. And, you've got a Miami defense that swarms, it's quick to close, it has really, really, really good hands, that's going to strip you every single time you do that. That missed box out on Butler there, when he just snuck in right behind him and just grabbed it, just lazy, lazy, lazy stuff. And just total to even still, you could have withstood a bad Jaylen Brown, not a great Jaylen Brown first half, if everybody didn't decide that they were done playing in the third quarter. I've never seen anything like it. It just stopped. It just came to a halt. What happened? How much of that, Sherrod, do you credit to adjustments? How much to fatigue from the Celtics, or how much just simply to just the fact that Miami took it to them and the Celtics just didn't answer the bell?
I think that door number 3, Miami this is what they do. I mean, they made this game into a street ball, and that's exactly when they're at their best.
Tougher.
They were the tougher team. They made the tough plays. Jimmy Butler went at everyone. Tatum, you got some. Pritchard, you're getting some. Jaylen Brown, yep, you're going to get some too. Rob, I know you're big, but guess what? You're going to get some of this Jimmy Buckets action as well. And that opens things up for everyone else. And at the end of the day, when they look back at this tape, to me, the common thread that bound Miami's comeback was toughness. They were simply the tougher team, and it's a reflection of their coach. It's a reflection of what the hell they talked about at halftime. You better believe that was the one thing that they talked about more than anything else. You have to be who you are. You have to be the tougher team. And the Celtics couldn't match that at all, not even close. And we have, I don't know if you guys talked much at all about Grant, but you don't expect 27-point Game 7 Grant. But what we saw tonight was inexcusable. He was brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal on every single. This was a Grant Williams that we were questioning whether or not he should even be on the floor at all for the Celtics. He has to be better than what we saw in this game if they're going to have any shot of getting back into the series.
Yeah, and it's not a perfect series for Grant matchup wise, with the Heat and their perimeter players and the way that it's going to go. So he's just got to knock down shots and show his value there. That didn't happen. That didn't happen. And by the way, the friggin' fake Miami fans, that's the loudest they've been, the right behind you there, that they were all night. Let's bring in, I'm dying to see this. I've been dying to see this all day. Bobby Manning and his Miami fit. He's coming into the game here. What are we looking at, Bobby?
Who are you wearing?
Who are you wearing?
Who am I wearing? I don't know the name, but
that is not Tom Ford. I can tell you that right now.
Are you
Versace?
Yeah.
Or Versace. Gerard got a good look. You can ask for his review. But I want to talk about the game, so we can save the silly stuff for later. What a disaster.
I'm done with the game. I'm done
Bobby
with it.
business in the building.
Bobby business.
What do you got, Bobby?
Yeah, what do you think, Bobby? What I just posted,
it's not
Sherrod.
Often.
Go ahead.
Bots it's not back. Often you
sex bots.
They're back. I thought they went to sleep.
Hold on, let's let Bobby talk about the game. I'll deal with the sex bots.
It's not often you play 3 pretty good quarters and lose on a nightmare one like that. 14 points, give up 39. The Butler breakout, Tatum standing in the half court. We saw it last series because you still see shades of the old Celtics creep in here every round, just about, except the first one. And even the first one had some slippage that we forget about now. And you just hope it's an anomaly. But man, this one brought back nightmares of the bubble. This one brought back shades of the old Celtics from earlier in the season. This quarter, that third quarter, had to be up there with their worst quarters all season.
I didn't want to say that because I don't like hyperbole, but I was trying to think.
It felt like it.
It was so bad.
I mean, I think they had a 9-pointer earlier in the season, so that's probably takes the cake. But and there were a lot of quarter disasters, Lord knows. But this one, the consequential nature of it is huge. And I don't even want to talk about Al and Smart and all this other stuff. It stems from Tatum. It stemmed from Tatum. He was a
Yeah, I agree.
disaster out there. 6 turnovers, set the tone for the sloppiness, standing around, not getting back on
6 in the
defense.
third. Yeah.
Yeah, 6 in the third. Yeah, and
Bobby, you're
it
being too
all
kind to
flowed
him. He
from
had
there.
7. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all flowed from him. And I don't think Al had anything to do with it. I don't think Smart would have helped to some degree, but the Heat jumped all over you at the half
The
court.
reason
They're
it
diving on
matters
loose balls. The physicality was insane.
the reason those guys matter is just the simple trickle down effect that we talked about. I thought Derek White had a good first half, and he faded like the rest of the team in the second. But you're really pressing your luck every time you get a like decent minutes from guys that aren't expected to play. So when you got positive Neesmith minutes in the first half and Tice was all right and this and that, you know that second stint's not going to go as well there. Again, it didn't matter because it was the starters that got run off the floor in the second quarter there. But it's just the pressure on those guys to step up their games for the entire game and then to log another 40 minutes after going 7 games and playing 40 minutes a night against the Bucks is just was a lot for those guys. So, but this game wasn't about Smart and Horford. It was about what the guys on the court did when they were on the court in that third quarter. That starting lineup was great in the first half. There's no excuse for them to play the way that they played to start the third quarter.
They needed Tatum and Brown to be the best players from without question. Because you knew Miami was going to make a run because that's what Miami does. That's who they are. And Jaylen, I thought Jayson in the first half did exactly what you wanted to do. He took what the defense gave him, made them pay. In the second half, they needed Jaylen. They desperately needed him to step up because I thought Miami made some subtle adjustments. They were a little bit better in their closeouts on Tatum and forced him to be more of a distributor and a ball mover. And Jaylen Brown was the guy that I thought had the best opportunity to take advantage of that. But he didn't. I mean, he again 24 and 10 was his final line, but a lot of that was just garbage points in the second half when the Celtics were down by 10, 12 points, and he helped them chip it. And instead of being a 5-possession game, he scored, make it a 4-possession game. Not really doing much to move the needle and get you in position to win the game. So a bad Jaylen game, he'll bounce back, I believe, in game 2. But for anyone who's looking at the box score and think that Jaylen Brown had a good game, you clearly did not watch the game because he didn't.
No, ton of missed free throws too. When you're rallying, those really cut in your
Oh
ability
my
to make
God.
it a close game. He was out of it, running into traffic and losing the ball, nowhere to go. Rough game from him too. And Rob, I texted you obviously at halftime, John, and said, you got to be really encouraged by how Rob's looking. And he just adjusted, got underneath him, and jammed that ball loose every time he got it to start the third quarter there. And he got taken out of the game too.
He
The
did.
Heat, man.
Hell of an adjustment by Spoelstra, which they did with Rob, because those back-to-back possessions where they looked at the film and said, he's bringing the ball down low. Gabe, stick your damn hand in there and strip him. Hell of an adjustment by Spoelstra.
And that's the thing is you really they were feeding the ball to Rob in traffic, trying to force it in there a couple of times, and it's just not what you do. You throw it there for Rob.
Right.
And there's a reason behind that. And yeah, they did adjust there. PJ Tucker had a much better second half on Jayson Tatum as well. Definitely
Bam
seemed
stepped
like
up big time.
yeah, Bam, who didn't do much in that first half, was better. And Miami tightened up their defense for sure, but it's still not really an explanation for how things went the way that they went there.
Doesn't it feel like, John, this team still has something on you? Just a little something, the intangibles. They jumped it looked like the bubble in that third quarter. Butler running out with those 2 back-to-back dunks. Those were bubble style.
It was bad. The real thing is how much of this is emblematic of the type of stuff we're going to see in the series and how much of it is chalk it up to one bad game. I hate seeing it because every time you see something like what you saw in the third quarter, you're like, oh God, are you still capable of this? Like, how can you play at the level that you played for 35, 40 games at the end of the year and then, manage to, sneak out that series and outwork the Bucks and get everything you needed to do and, blow them out in a game 7 and still have periods of time where you can just revert to this awful style of play. And I know people are like, we won 3 quarters and lost one. That's not what happened. Okay. The Celtics played out of their minds for the first half, and Miami stayed close. And then the Celtics got friggin' absolutely run off the court. And anything that happened after that third quarter doesn't matter, because the fourth
Right.
quarter was garbage time pretty much the whole way through.
The
So
Heat
they,
kept you
Yeah,
at bay each
big
time.
lead.
Like
the Heat,
every time
the
you tried
Heat
to put
hung
it.
close enough, and then they
Right.
took the game. That's what happened.
Right.
I don't want to hear about the quarters. Okay, Celtics did play well, but they shot the lights out. Tatum's flipping the ball over his head and it's going in. He's making contested threes. I mean, it was stuff that was borderline unsustainable just in terms of the shooting. It was fairly even, and I thought the Celtics played well, but so much of that had to do
The
with
defense
just
was really good early.
and the defense was
set a good
really good,
tone.
but then they lapsed just for a little. The Heat get a couple easy buckets in transition. 12 points, 13 points, 10 points turns to 8, turns to 6, and they're in the game. So, I mean, again, 8-point lead at the end of the half doesn't, your work is not done. You know, it was a
It-
close game, and then the Heat just came and said, we want this game, and they took it and they won it clean. So it's not a matter of how many quarters the Celtics lost. The first half means nothing. It was a close game. And the Heat ran them off the floor. Have to accept that as the reality of what happened tonight.
And
It
It
was-
doesn't mean it's going to happen every night. That's what happened tonight. Yeah.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
I was gonna say it was different from that game 7 against the Bucks because the Celtics had the lead at halftime, but they didn't play a good first half. And you're like, if they can just play
Yeah.
decent basketball in the second half, they should run away with this win. And that's what happened. They played better in that second half. Grant hit his shots, and the rest is history. Tonight it was complete opposite. They played really well in that first half, hung on to a relatively small lead, a single digit lead, and then I don't know. I'm still like speechless as to what really caused it, other than like Bobby said, maybe it's a little PTSD. You know, maybe all of a sudden they see Jimmy Butler with the steal and it just flashed back to the bubble when they were just getting run off the court by this Heat team. You know, some of the same guys on this Heat team. Whether it's Bam, Butler, Hero, those 3 guys were huge in that series. And then you've got, you know, some of the same faces on this Celtics team that you had in the bubble, but this isn't supposed to be the same Tatum and Brown as the bubble. We've already made that determination before the series started. This is now a Tatum and Brown who are ready to be in this position and who are experienced enough and who are, you know, it is quote unquote their time to win a game like this and win a series like this. So I'm not accepting that as I'm not accepting it. Oh, that the Celtics just aren't ready to be here, or the Heat are just on another level. No, I disagree with that. I think the Celtics are fully capable
No, they're not.
and actually should be better than this Heat team. Now,
Fully
the
staffed.
difference is
Yeah.
exactly the difference is Marcus Smart didn't play tonight and Al Horford didn't play tonight. Hopefully they can get Al Horford back for game 2. I don't know what the hell is going on with that protocol situation. And I don't know what the deal is with Marcus Smart either. Nobody does. I know that obviously if Marcus Smart could play, you know, even through pain, I'm sure he would. So I'm interested to see, you know, what
I am
the
going to step
situation
back
is
in with
him.
the Celtics for a few minutes, get some players coming here, so I'll
Do
be
your
back.
thing. Do your thing.
I anticipate that we will see Marcus in game 2.
You think so?
I do. I have a very good feeling that Marcus Smart will suit up for game 2.
What do you know, Sherrod? What do you know?
As far as Al Horford is concerned, and again, it's very vague as far as what the hell is going on with him. But one of the things, just kind of looking at the timeline a little bit, there may be one of the issues that may have triggered him even being tested was the fact that, remember, whenever you're getting vaccinated, there's 2 doses, and there's a period of time between when you take the first one and the second one. There is a scenario potentially out there where Al would trigger him getting tested and testing positive is the need to take the second dose, because you're not going to take the second dose if you're positive, so you got to take the test. And that, my understanding, was a factor in Al being put in health and safety protocol. So there depend. And one of the things that the Celtics are hopeful for is that he'll get more tests in the next day or so, and there'll be a false negative reading, which is very possible. But they know that they're not going to win this series if they can't have Al Horford back in the next 2 or 3 games. They need him. He means that much to them because, as John pointed out earlier, the trickle-down effect when you don't have him means you're playing more tight. You're playing Watford more extended runs. You're starting to, Grant Williams is playing more out of position than usual. And over time, it becomes a negative when those guys are on the floor. Because you look at Aaron Nesmith tonight, great for 2 or 3 possessions, but you saw the longer he was out there, again, diminishing returns. Same thing with Tice, same thing with Grant, and unfortunately the same thing with Timlin. So you're going to need Al Horford back sooner rather than later if you're going to have a chance to win this series.
John, I can't hear you. Wait, I can't hear anybody.
Jimmy, can you hear John? I can't hear him.
I can't hear him, and I couldn't hear you until just a second, so that was scary. But I can hear you now, Sherrod. I can't hear John. So Sherrod, we'll let John bow out and bow back in. I'm trying to follow your Horford theory. So you're saying that you think because he is getting vaccinated, he had to get tested? I'm sorry if I'm
Whenever you get vaccinated, Jimmy, remember there's two shots that you
yeah,
have to,
right.
right, and then there's a
And
time
a
period that
booster.
has right. There's a time period where those things have to come into play, and it's not clear whether Al had all of those shots going
Right.
into the series. So there's a lag of time involved there, and so my understanding is that was one of the factors that led to him being put in health and safety protocol.
So he has to
So
test every day.
can you
Or
guys
every
hear me?
game day.
Yeah, we can hear you now, John.
I
Yeah.
did want to ask that question.
We should just tell him no, Sherrod, so that he keeps going in and out and we don't have to deal with him. But go on, John.
No, I was curious
What the
about the
hell
one
was
asked
that?
because I'm talking.
Okay.
So again, the way I understand is if you were fully vaccinated, you only have to test if you have symptoms, which means you have to self-report. And Al Horford was at shoot around this morning. I highly doubt all of a sudden he developed symptoms and self-reported after that. So there had to be something to necessitate a test, which would be either not being vaccinated or being booster eligible, but not having taken a booster yet. Right? Is that's what we have?
That's my understanding that there was
Right.
there's something involving testing that led to him being put in health and safety protocol. And again, if
Man,
you're the
that sucks.
Celtics, well, and again, the timing cannot be any worse because obviously,
So he was the presumption then is he's an asymptomatic positive. Whether or not that's a
Right.
false positive, we don't know. But it appears he was forced to take a test because of his status.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Because of his status, forced to take a test, not because he was sick, but he had to take a test and it just came up positive.
That's my understanding because from what I've been told, that Al has not had any type of symptoms at all.
Even Ime said it. He's fine.
Right. So that's again, you're hoping that this works out so that Al can be back on the floor for game 2 because they're going to need him. He's that important to this team. Because like I said, I don't know if you guys heard me, but just the trickle down effect when you don't have him available, you got to play Rob extended minutes. You got to play Tice minutes. Period. You get out. Grant Williams will be more out of position than usual, and that's just not conducive for this team getting out of this series and getting to the finals.
Yeah. So that's a rough one.
Man, talk about frustration, man. I mean, the timing of that is just horrible.
It's frustrating because it would appear to be somewhat self-inflicted, and at this point in the season, you just can't really have that sort of stuff. And I know this was a concern when you're talking about Toronto, which ended up not being the case. But if personal choices came back and kind of bit the Celtics in the ass here, that's a really tough one to swallow here because that's injuries are one thing. Smart's thing was a freak thing. He falls and smacks his face and somehow sprains his foot. That sucks. And that happens, and injuries are part of it. This feels avoidable. And so if Al Horford misses any more than this one game and the Celtics suffer as a result of it, this is going to be something that's going to not be a great thing. For a team, and I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but for a team that had and has legitimate championship aspirations to the point that I think most experts are picking them outright to get out of the East and possibly to even be favorites in the finals. Just to submarine your season or to have things, there's not a lot of margin for error here. It can get away from you quick in a 7-game series. You can't give away 2 games here and then just hope to bounce back. It gets much, much trickier.
But that being said, John, even without Al, they should have won this game.
They could and should have, right?
If they would have simply done the things at a relatively close level that we saw in the first half, they're up 1-0. And again, there's a lot of blame pie to go around. Jayson Tatum and all those damn turnovers certainly didn't help matters. But again, if you put a gun in my head and said that who's the one guy that could have made the biggest difference if you'd have played his game, I would say Jaylen Brown. Because he was just, and I don't understand why or what happened with Jaylen, because he really, this was his kind of game. I thought this was the kind of game where he was really going to shine.
Last
and he
thing,
didn't.
last thing I want to say on the Horford thing. What's unfortunate here, not from a health perspective, but from a playing perspective, is the NBA. I mean, the NFL in March punted on all of their. At a certain point in the season, said we're done with COVID protocols. There just are none. If you're sick,
Right.
test. Anything than that, don't. It was thought the NBA might follow suit, and they didn't. And if they did, Al Horford would have played tonight because Al Horford wasn't sick. Al Horford got dinged for a different reason. So
Right.
again, these protocols being in place here where other sports have decided to kind of move on from them is obviously part of the reason here that this happened. So it is unfortunate, but you're right. Back to what you said, the game is the game, and it really only matters that the guys on the court were capable of winning this game tonight and absolutely puked all over themselves. And again, the question is how much of this is concerning going forward. And again, the Tatum stuff, I know Brown Brown was bad, but the Tatum stuff is just is I can't understand it. For a guy, a superstar, okay? And who every time you talk about him and he has these games and it's like he's arrived and he's here. What other superstar has games where you're like,
LeBron.
oh my God, here he is pouting and blah, blah, blah again and being careless and just whipping the ball all over the place? It's just, I know you have bad games sometimes, but just to do this stuff that he does, just to get slow and sloppy and lazy and frustrated in the body language when things don't go well, you just got to get rid of that. You got to be a star, man. Like, you got to battle through games where things aren't going your way. And this is coming off of a guy who everything was going his way. He was on freaking fire in the first half. I don't know how he comes out like that in the second. I don't know how it happens. And then it just snowballs from there. Those back-to-back turnovers off the timeout, the worst things I've ever seen. And Ime honestly should have yanked him at that point. Your head is not in this game right now. You have to get off the court and get yourself right. His head was not in the game. I don't know what happened there.
No, that was for me of all the things that went wrong. That was one of the more perplexing ones. I mean,
I
because I
don't
mean,
get it.
we've seen Tatum have his ups and downs, but I don't know we've ever seen just a scenario like that play out, where he just turns the ball over really haphazardly back to back at a point in the game when frankly all you really needed was just to run your offense,
Run
knock
the
down a shot,
offense, get
and
a
it's
couple
and it's a
stops, and
two.
whittle it down. Keep it
Yeah,
close.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
That ignited the Miami Heat. They were feeling, I think, at that point, we got this. I know we got another quarter and some change to play, but their best player, he's not here. He's here physically, but he's just not locked in the way he needs to be. And I'm really curious to see how Tatum comes out in game two, because again we saw him have a great start, but as he knows and as we all know, it's about the finish. It's about what do you do when the game is on the line. I mean, Jimmy Butler is a prime example of that. I mean, he was a non-factor in the first half in every sense of the word, and he's looking up and he's not doing much, and they're only down by 8. So you knew he was going to be more aggressive at the start of the second half. The Celtics, they've got to do a better job of responding to that, knowing that Miami is only going to get tougher as the game goes on.
Right.
Great quote by Ime here. Having Marcus and Al might have helped because they settle us down, but it wasn't really just that. And it wasn't our young guys, Peyton and Aaron, but it was our veterans, Jayson and Jaylen, who let it get away from us. So there it is right there. I mean, the head
Okay.
coach is not shy in stating the obvious that his two leaders, the two guys that have gotten them to this point, let them
Sucked.
down tonight. Yeah, let
Yeah.
them down tonight. And at one point in the game or another. And yeah, we talked about Tatum having a good start to this game, but like you said, John, again, let the emotions kind of get to him. Snowballed from there. Jaylen Brown just didn't have it from the start tonight. I don't know what's going on there. Ime didn't mention anything about an injury, so his head wasn't in the game for whatever reason. So your two guys that you need to have good games, pretty much night in and night out, didn't show up tonight. So in that sense, you have something to, if you want to talk about, oh well, the Celtics didn't play well tonight and they didn't win. Fine, that's accurate. So again, it goes back to when they're playing well, when they're playing their best version of themselves basketball, they can compete with anybody and they can beat anybody. So that's kind of the silver lining, I guess, is a lot of these guys didn't play well tonight. I mean, we talked about Grant. We already know Jaylen and Jayson. Obviously Horford didn't even get to play. So again, getting these guys back to where they need to be. This is a beatable Heat team, and you got an otherworldly performance from Jimmy Butler tonight. And again, it almost feels like the Giannis situation where it was like Butler, and he did have some help. Don't get me wrong, but he was the star of the show tonight by far. And if you can find your two-headed monster in Jayson and Tatum and Jayson and Jaylen to get their heads on straight, then you're gonna be back up in this series with them.